Hey everybody, Jamie Kelly here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Season 3 of the Approximate Podcast. Be sure to join our Patreon for only $5 a month to see all of Season 3's episodes in full HD video. That's patreon.com/approximate podcast. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for your support. And to everyone who's tuned in, we love you all. And now, on with the show. Kitty! Fucking stop it. God damn it. Fucking cat. Yeah, you. Oi. Scrapple. Stop it. All right, cut. We're done. Fucking cat. God damn it. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me today.
So thankful that you are here. It's Jimmy Broadway, right?
Yes.
Jimmy Broadway. Now, I got to be honest, for the people that are listening, we haven't actually met, and you have like a lot more rapport with Stephanie.
Yes.
Hey.
But you hit me up to with your interest about the podcast, and I'm so thankful that you did, because I didn't know who you were, and I almost treated it as dude, just some weird dudes hitting me up, and I did.
I'm going to be honest, and I could very well be a weird dude, but I have been in the industry for 18 years as well, so I kind of qualify on that.
But before I jumped the gun and thought it was just some rando hitting me up, I ran upstairs to Steph, and I said, "Wait, Steph, this Jimmy guy, does that mean anything to you?" And she was like, "Son of a bitch, Jamie, we have to have him on the show."
I was like, you really don't know who he is?
I didn't know who you were, and now I'm learning now. But just for to get it right out of the way for the sake of the listening audience, who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? I am a lifestyle fetish and BDSM player who 18 years ago, through a weird sequence of events, ended up producing, directing, and performing in adult fetish videos.
And you wound up here.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. No, I can't.
Every life has its peaks and valleys.
Shoot for the moon.
And I'm not going to say anything more than that.
Shoot for the moon, you hit the brick wall.
Well, this is a podcast that is all about our guest stories. And so I believe this story, every story should start at the start. This story starts with you and Stephanie's relationship. How did you guys meet, that you know him so well?
I think it was it prior to that? I think I shot prior for Groovy at y'all's place. I think Blackie.
Around what time was this?
Back when Blackie was directing for Groovy, you were probably came in with him.
Yeah. I think that's the first time that I went to Severe Society.
Just let me interrupt right here. I know between y'all's gabbing, you're going to throw out a lot of terms and a lot of names that I'm not familiar with. So I'm going to ask, and for the sake of our listening audience, for their benefit, what is Severe Society?
I was just about to say that. So it's Jimmy and Dee's production company, Dee Severe and Jimmy Broadway's production company.
Going back a little further than that, Severe Society was originally a live performance troupe in Los Angeles. Used to play clubs like Bunker, Hell, Cinematic.
Shit, I didn't even know.
And when we got our start, we were working with two of the members of the group, and the group had kind of fallen apart at that point. Several people had moved on. Some of the clubs that they performed at had closed or changed, their formats and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of kicking around for a name for the production company. And Sal, Sir Nick, who at the time was probably our main dominant male performer, suggested adopting the Severe Society name. And they talked it over with the remaining members of the group. Nobody objected to it. And we became Severe Society Films. And then about 10 years later, we were kind of doing a reorganization of our stuff. We had just signed with a new distributor, and he wanted to kind of rebrand us and show that we were taking the next step forward. That nothing wrong with what we had done before, but that the new stuff was going to be, a little more polished, with a bit more, basically applying a lot of the stuff we had learned along the way and giving it some more production value and taking in a few more, because a lot of there are two schools of thought on fetish films, and one is no sex whatsoever. That like fetish people don't have sex; they just do their fetish things, and then there's the other school where it's part of their active sex life. And we had started in the first school and we're moving into the second school, so we rebranded as Severe Sex, which we actually took from the name of one of our 4 clip stores on Clips for Sale at the time. And our distributor Howard said, "Yeah, that's the one. That's going to work." And so for the last 10 years or so, we've been Severe Sex.
Damn.
Oh, I see. Quick question: do you find, like, business-wise, that they're for the purity of the fetishes versus incorporating fetish into sex? Was there a monetary difference, or was that something that was taken into consideration to bring fetish into a more sexual avenue?
Honestly, I think you hit a wider audience by bringing the sex into it, because that's the way a lot of people play. Yes, they're the purists out there, or, I mean, there's some people who, are in a committed relationship with one individual. And then they, either behind their back or with the understanding of that individual, go to somebody else to get their fetish needs satisfied. Unfortunately, sometimes it is the behind the back thing, which I understand the reason for it, but I don't agree with it. I think if you can't be honest with your partner, and if your partner can't be honest and understanding with you, then maybe that's just not the right partnership.
Yeah, maybe it's not a right click.
But like I said, I've seen a number of people over the years who, they love their wife and they've got this wonderful relationship. They've got kids. They're happy together. They've got a lot of common interests and everything. But she's just not kinky.
Yeah.
And the husband is. And through an understanding together, he gets that part of it from somebody else.
Right.
But with that somebody else, there's none of the sex that he's getting on the wife's side.
Right.
So
And
it's something he can't get at home.
Exactly.
do you feel like there's it seems to me like, just explaining that concept right there, it seems like it may be rife with miscommunication and people coming at odds with each other. Like, it could be a deal breaker just through misunderstanding about what people's needs are. A lack of communication. Is that like something that you've found that happens?
Honestly, I think communication is the key to any successful relationship. I don't care whether you're talking business partners, a father and a son, a husband and a wife and a wife, whatever this any relationship you have in your life, if you do not have good, solid, honest communication in that relationship, ultimately that relationship is either not going to be as successful as it could be, or it's going to fail.
Yeah, that stands to reason. Absolutely.
Upfront, honest communication, especially if you're starting to bring like dangerous, like kinky shit that you got to mitigate risk for and stuff like that. Like, you got to really, be up on that, be telling each other, as well, if it's your partner that you're playing with, if it's somebody you're getting with off of, if you're somebody you're getting with on the side from your partner, then, that's a little different, but you still need to be upfront and honest with your dominatrix or your, professional sub or whatever. Yeah.
So I'm going to wind it back because, again, this has been a theme for all of season 3 that we're
have theme
currently
music?
recording. There's theme music.
All right.
There will be.
But there's an ongoing theme where, although I've known you for nigh on 12 years, Stephanie, I'm still learning things about you. And I want to get back to what you and Jimmy's relationship is, working and otherwise, because this is a story that I've been like bereft of, that I have no idea about. So let's start back onto how you know Jimmy and like what you guys have done together.
Yeah, so I think it was around like 2015. I think probably
Sounds
15,
about right,
Maybe
yeah.
14, maybe late 14. It's when I was.
This was in a time of your like being transient. Like we had already known each other for about 2 years, and then you kind of, I wouldn't say disappeared out of my life, but you were
Moved to LA.
traveling. You were all over the map.
This is when I moved to LA, and this was like probably like the first or second year I was there. Yeah, I was. Look, it was a hardcore for Groovy, I think, and we just ended up renting the space. And then we met around that time. But where I really got to meet him at is when we had this content trade. It was me and Ruckus and Eden Alexander and, oh God, who else was it? There were some other people there.
I'm trying to remember. Actually,
Somebody else.
I just looked up the paperwork on this scene a couple of weeks ago because we were putting it up on a different outlet.
Oh, it's Lotus Lane.
Yes.
Lotus Lane, Eden Alexander, me, Ruckus, and then you and D. Yeah, so this is basically a full day of content trade shooting. We were just doing a content trade thing. But they also had booked me for this like teacher strap-on school thing. That was really cool. Yes. Stephanie strap-on school or something like that. So I was like, so Eden was playing like a class, like a schoolgirl. She was like, Professor Stephanie, like this, that, asked me questions and stuff, and I had to answer it and like draw stuff out on the chalkboard. And I think I didn't quite nail that role.
You did just fine.
Yeah.
This was all under Severe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Right.
The strap-on school thing, and then it was just like a split between me and the other performers for the other what was it, the other content trade that we shot with me and Ruckus.
This is like the early days of trade.
Yeah, this was like kind of like the emphasis.
Yeah, we traded fairly early in the game before, and it's like
Now it's ubiquitous.
everybody's a creator and everybody's doing collabs and everything. And back then we were broke. And the easiest way to get the content you needed to make the money was to find other broke people and say, hey, listen, we're all broke, but we got this place, we got these cameras, we got this wiry little guy who runs around with the cameras and points them at people, and he's pretty good at that. So why don't you come down and we'll come up with some wacky ideas and we'll shoot them, and we each get a copy of it, and away we go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So this was like 2 or 3 years before like OnlyFans actually even hit.
Yeah, I mean, none of the fan sites. Yeah. I mean, back then, Clips for Sale was the thing.
Yeah, Clips for Sale was.
I mean, some of the other, like the many vids. And
I Want Clips, I think, was just now taking off around that time. It was Clips for Sale,
Yeah.
I Want Clips, and then Many Vids and stuff like that came along. Yeah, so Many Vids haven't even started around this time, if I remember right. Yeah. But yeah.
Humble beginnings of how to like navigate what it is to be in this industry.
Yeah. And then from there, it's just been like, she's at like every industry party that I show up to.
Yeah, I mean, we bump into each other in weird, and then you move,
Yeah.
and then you come back, and then we bump into each other someplace completely random. I was hey, I haven't seen you in 3 years.
Yeah.
What's new? Oh, I'm living here. Oh, you're living here now. Okay.
Yeah. It's crazy. Life's crazy like that.
Fantastic. So I get the vibe from you, Jimmy, that you're maybe a tech dork.
A little bit.
A little bit. Do you, like, within the confines of the industry, I have several questions.
Okay.
But we'll start with number one. Do you find that you find more pleasure or more, I don't know, more fulfillment in being a performer, as it were, or somebody that, like, turns the gears behind the scenes?
Actually, I get the most pleasure by being able to do both. By not being locked into one role. Because, I mean, people are multidimensional. Mm-hmm. They have different things that it's like food. You don't go out and eat Chinese food every single day. It gets boring. You get sick of it after a while.
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
But no, I absolutely get your point. Yes.
If you go out and, okay, today I'm going to be a performer. Tuesday I'm going to direct. Wednesday I'm working on the crew, setting up the lights and making sure the sound's working right.
This is very interesting because this is something that has been brewing in the back of my head that I've always wanted to bring up. This idea of spinning multiple plates and being as equally invested in these desperate interests. And do you okay, so I totally get it. Running gear behind the scenes, setting up shots, being part of pre and production and post-production, and then also being a performer and living that part of it, you feel like the gratification in equal measure against all these disciplines. How important is it? Do you feel like, because everybody's different, like you said, do you feel like you can spin them all at once, or do you need to take time and put energy towards spinning this plate or this plate and drawing a line?
You mean on the same project doing multiple, or just?
Oh, now we're getting deep. No, I see. Just do you have a general way that you feel about yourself? Are you primarily a performer but love production, or vice versa, or is it all in equal measure?
It's
and then you
equal.
have to find time to do each discipline to the best of your ability.
It's pretty equal, and I don't really feel. I mean, there've been occasional times when I felt, that one area is kind of falling behind. It's like I haven't been about a year and a half ago. I did come down with COVID, and just coming out of COVID, it just got me into a place where I just did not feel like performing at that time. I had no energy. I was having trouble focusing, and
but that was a matter of being physically exhausted by disease.
Well, but my point is, I sat down one day and realized it's been 10 months since I've done a scene. I really need to get back and do scenes again. I miss it. I miss doing that, and I really need to be doing it again. And I think that was an extreme example. But if I go for a stretch where I'm focusing more, and it's just fate the way, you get booking, because I shoot for us, but then I also shoot for other companies.
Right.
And then I do trades with other performers. But then for our company, we get into projects like right now, my wife Dee is directing a feature. So I'm doing one scene in the feature, but because it's a feature, I can't be in a ton of scenes. So I'm focusing more on technical stuff for those other scenes.
Right.
So, just, random scheduling demons come up, and you don't get an equal divide between the three. And sometimes you just have to, take a step back and do a little push in one direction, or push, look for some more.
Yeah. No,
whether it's more performing gigs, or whether it's, just telling a friend, hey, listen, I want to get back behind a camera for a couple of days. If you need a hand, let me know, and I'll come down and shoot some stuff for you.
I find more often than not that what you just described is absolutely the case for those of us that are invested. And I wouldn't even say that it is I wouldn't say that it's a thing that is just partial to being in the adult entertainment industry, but like a creative. Somebody that wants to make stuff, somebody that's imbued in living life and making stuff and being amongst people and having these passions to create. You find yourself at all sorts of odds, depending upon what life throws at you, and
Exactly.
you got to start making decisions, no matter where you are in your own head. You know, you have to call, you have to answer the call.
It's like I always say, sex work is nothing if it's not adaptive, right?
Yeah.
It's a very adaptive.
Yeah.
And it's like anything in life. You need balance. And sometimes just the situation throws you off balance, and you've got to, push down on that other side of the scale and get it back balanced.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, knowing what I have learned about you so far, I want to talk a little bit, because I'll have a little bit more to say about this, because we're new, you and I. I love the tech aspect. I want to get nerdy with you a little bit. From your nerdy side, from your production side, what do you favor more? Are you into videography? Are you into photography? Do you find more solace in editing and post production?
I've been doing stuff related to this for going back into high school. When I was in high school,
So about 10 years ago.
yeah, more or less. My high school graduating class is a bit lazy. Theoretically, we should have my 40th reunion this year, but
Goodness.
I don't think anybody's going to get off their ass and produce it. So, but when a lot of kids were writing for the school paper, I went and wrote and did photography for the local paper, and got in that way. And I learned videography by working in public access cable back then. So I went through a stretch from high school through college as a fairly successful still photographer. In college, I was doing everything from headshots for people to, there were a couple of small newspapers that I worked for. I was doing event shots for things. And then once I got out of that, and I just drifted into other things, and that was back in the film days too. Put in a roll of Kodachrome and crank it along. But now with digital, it's some of the concepts are the same, but it's a whole different world, and you can do so much with it. And so I still do a little photography, but video is more my thing. It's the same, roller coaster thing with post. Now I'm really not a big post-production person.
Really? You delegate those responsibilities?
Well, Dee is a very good editor.
Oh.
And she...
let me just interrupt for a moment. Forgive me. But we keep mentioning the name Dee.
Yes.
Who is Dee, and how did they play into Severe?
Dee is my partner in everything. We've been together since 1998. We've been married since 2001. We got married 1 month after 9/11, which really made the wedding interesting.
I imagine.
Well, we were living in LA. Most of my family is back on the East Coast, and we figured, okay, wherever we go, we're gonna make half the people travel, and that's really not fair to the other half. So let's just make everybody travel. And we got married in New Orleans.
Wow.
Picked a nice middle spot, a city that we love, and went down there. But like I said, it was a month after 9/11. And transportation was not back 100%. There were about half the people we invited just could not come because of that. There were others that drove, for 3 days to get down there with their screaming children. I do not understand how they manage that, but I thank them for it.
She is it's y'all's business.
Yes.
Severe
We're
Dee and Jimmy.
We call it a dom and pop operation.
Nice.
Nice.
But her specialty is the post-production side of it. Over the years, she has learned to shoot much better than she did when she first picked up a camera. She's actually now pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But she does the editing. She writes a lot. She loves to direct. I mean, for me, I kind of got burned out on editing because I learned how to edit. And a lot of people out there have no idea what this concept is. Linear editing.
Oh, yeah.
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 So you learn editing on
the
film.
I on videotape.
Oh, on videotape.
But it was, you would put down a black control track, and then you would insert, and you would roll tape machines and take the edits as you went, and you had to time them. So it's machine A, machine B, machine A, machine B. Sometimes a C if you had a really nice post house. But it's a tough way to edit.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
it's
just-
brutal, and you were left with like what was captured on camera.
Yeah,
You know, the heavy lifting had to be done in camera.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now what's called nonlinear editing, which is
All your editor programs.
pretty much all the computerized editing that's done now. I mean, you can stretch things, you can insert things, you
There's
can
Control Z.
Yeah, exactly. Once you had recorded over something, it was gone.
Let me ask
We
you
did
this.
that many times, and it was unpleasant.
Do you have dark feelings about that? Are you wagging your finger at the new generation, going, "Well, things would be better if you just did it the way I did because you had to put in your fucking elbow grease."
Honestly, I think they would have a much greater appreciation of what editing is if they had to do just one project linear.
That's fair.
And just
That's
like
fair.
I mean, it's like a lot of things. If you do it once the old way, not every day the old way, but just do it once the old way to see what that was,
Right. Tough it out.
and then that will give you a greater appreciation of the tools that you've got to work with now that we couldn't even dream of back then.
Right.
Now, those tools to do that job, linear editing, are probably hard as hell to get a hold of now, aren't they?
No, I've actually got a friend who's got 4 1-inch machines in his warehouse.
Oh.
He's not sure what to do with them, but
But that's from that's from that time, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, 1-inch videotape was popular from, I'd say, like early 80s into mid 90s.
Just missed it myself.
I imagine you have probably, I can't think of the name, but I bet, I'm willing to imagine that you could fill in the gaps here. While working with those linear editing machines, were you also a part of the timeline where you had access to like, what was it, something toaster, graphic toaster or something like that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Video toaster.
Video toaster. Do you have experience with that?
I never experienced it myself, but I knew it existed. And it was one of those things, ooh, wouldn't mind getting one of those. But never did, and then better things came along, and
Yeah.
What did this thing do? I'm completely lost on it.
A video toaster was a thing where like it came with to put it in today's parlance, it was essentially a series of plugins, quote unquote, like star wipes and really simple like text overlays and things to help you with like transitions and kind of gussy up your,
okay.
you know.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, there used to be things called art cards.
Explain to me that. Now I'm totally stupid about that. What is this?
It would be a guy whose job was it to put letters on a card in front of a camera that would then get shot and put onto the video.
Wow.
That was how they did graphics for
Wow.
things like the news
Didn't know that. That's crazy.
and sports and
That actually makes a lot of sense. So if you look at like public access, like they always have that like painting type picture right there, and then they go to fade into the to whatever's happening. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
I
Well, these would
didn't know
either
that.
be black letters over a white background or white letters over a black background.
Oh, okay. So it's just okay. Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
You would kind of like
You'd key it
have
out.
to, yeah, you would key it in and it would.
Yeah. How would you key back then? Like, because you didn't have computers, right? Well, the kind of
Oh
computers
no,
we have now.
keying process is. I mean, that goes all the way back
Yeah.
to the almost the late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
Being able to key stuff, and yes, it was. It took a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Imagine. Yeah.
I mean, the secret to keying back then was lighting.
Yeah.
And just
Well, that's actually still the
now.
secret. The secret to everything is lighting.
Yeah.
But I mean, now with some of the programs out there, you can just lay things onto thing with no.
Oh, yeah.
The edge, like these days with the algorithms.
Whereas back
and the
then,
things.
it's like if your background lighting wasn't just perfectly flat,
exactly.
you would see it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like honestly, like it's all depending on like what you're shooting, like technology, like your camera and the lighting and stuff. But even today, like, I mean, you want to do a proper green screen, like
Yes.
for a professional production. You still have to evenly light the background, make sure that your subject is such amount of feet away from the backdrop, and then make sure that you have enough Z space with your camera and its particulars to capture everything just so you can grab a clean key.
Yeah, and you can't overlight it because then the green reflects back on your subject.
There's the spill.
and they start to develop little blotches.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to like be very adept at post-production and how to grab an appropriate key to make up for all the deficiencies that happened in camera. You know, so I love this. Like, the production line is only as good as the weakest link.
Yeah.
You know, I love that idea. And like Stephanie and I, we're in-house. Everything. It's just a two-person team. We run Jamie Kelly Productions, and we do all the things for all the purposes for everybody. We pride ourselves on being able to do that because I've been in this industry for 16 years, but for 25 years, I've been all audio. So, you know, dealing with like disseminating information across the, entire electromagnetic spectrum as a creative and as a person that wants to get things done for your clients and for yourself to express, you have to know so much.
Yes.
You have to know so much. And Stephanie and I aren't really in a position at this time to like delegate those kind of responsibilities because we're still in love with figuring everything out. And so she and I, we really keep it really simple. And it's one of those things where like we can do it all with enough time, but it's going to come at a cost.
Yes.
It's going to come at a cost for our in-house
Fast, cheap, and
two-person
good. Pick two.
Exactly. I was just
exactly.
about to bring that up.
Venn
You can pick
diagram.
two.
Yep.
Now, as we progress, as things go forward, slowly and surely, being able to disseminate between that triad of circles will become a lot more advantageous to us as a production company. But absolutely. And I think the like denominating factor is the passion that you have for doing it. I know it sucks to serve 1,000 masters, but when your heart's in it, you want to serve as many masters as possible. And I was telling Stephanie about this. I was like, Steph, like there's so much that there's only so much time in our lives to like figure out at least the fundamentals of everything.
Right.
So that when we're in a position to delegate responsibilities, we can hold those people to task.
Gotta
Mm-hmm.
have a set of standards before you.
Well, you also need to understand what you're asking them to
Absolutely.
do. I mean, I've run into that many times over the years where people who just don't understand what's involved ask you to do something that's impossible. And you just say, it was like in the early days of copying. Had to be done in real time.
Real time.
And, it's like, you would get to the end, finish up a shoot and go home, and we would back everything up immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So at the time, it was mini DV tapes. So we would copy all our mini DV tapes.
Which, as an aside, for people that are actually looking at this, y'all Patreons, thank you so much. Everything that you're seeing here is actually being done on a mini DV tape.
Oh. These little guys actually still run tape.
Oh, it's a story for a later day why I
Okay.
have these cameras. But yes, yeah, and the mini DV tapes act as our backup as we record digital information onto HDMI capture devices.
Yeah.
But yes, I
But
absolutely.
yeah,
understand.
I mean, so like every shoot we did, the first thing we did when we got home was set up the deck, set up a camera, and just transfer all the tapes over. The original tapes would go in a rack, and I would hand Dee all the transferred tapes, which she would then digitize into the editing program and edit from that.
Yeah.
And that way, if anything happened in the digitizing, we always had the master tapes.
And was that like CS like 2, like Adobe CS 3 or something?
Actually, Final Cut.
Oh, Final Cut. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
The-
We're a
the-
Final Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were Final Cut for years. And she hung on to Final Cut 7 forever. And then when we bought our latest round of cameras, they're 6K cameras. We shoot them in 4K. But Final Cut 7 cannot handle
6K,
cannot handle 4K.
4K. Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it maxes out at 1080 because Apple doesn't support it anymore.
Oh.
So they don't include the new codecs for any of the ultra high def. So,
So to edit that, you have to go to the PC. I guess.
well, we allowed to mention brands here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So our current cameras are from a company, Blackmagic. They also, through an acquisition, own a program called DaVinci,
Oh,
yeah.
DaVinci Resolve.
which
Yeah.
is
An
the-
open source.
It's not open source. They do still control it, but there is a free version of it.
There's a
that is
free
available.
version of it.
But if you buy any of their products, you get the not free version of it free.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Oh, okay.
And there's not a tremendous
Loop it in.
difference between the two unless you're doing really high end stuff. But there are a couple of little nice things in there.
All non-linear editors are pretty much the same. Once you learn one of them, you can kind of transfer that knowledge.
Well, it's not just the knowledge; it's the ability of the program
Oh, okay, yeah.
to do. And for years, I mean, the whole reason they bought DaVinci was because of its color grading capability.
Oh, okay.
People would edit in any one of, Premiere, Avid, Final Cut, whatever, and then they would bring their project into Resolve and
Color grade.
color grade from that.
Tell me if I'm stupid here, but is the appeal of DaVinci is that it has a wider and more reliable bottleneck than Adobe,
It's
but at the cost of everybody uses Adobe, so your production stream, for your clients and whoever you're talking to, is diminished.
I mean, the appeal for us is twofold. One, just because the programs are different. They do a lot of the same things, but they've each got the little things that they do really well. And DaVinci Resolve is really good at fixing things.
So like any footage you put into it will you don't have to worry about it not playing. Because I have that problem with Premiere sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
render
it's
it.
very format agnostic.
Okay.
But it's in terms of correcting problems with the footage. It's
Oh, okay.
really good. Like I said, they originated as the gold standard color grading program, and since then they've been developing a lot of the other aspects of it.
I've heard all about the color science behind it. Actually, I never have checked out DaVinci Resolve, but yeah, it's something I've been wanting to check
It's
out.
a really nice program. But we had someone working for us had a bit of a drinking problem. And managed to push the ISO on the cameras to 8,000.
Jesus.
Is this what I'm thinking of?
Probably.
Yeah.
What? I mean, that's such a weird, dumb, simple mistake.
Yikes.
I was just amazed because I never
Wash that
realized
image
that
out.
those cameras could actually go to an ISO 8000. Not quite sure what you'd use it for, but it's interesting.
I don't know that that's a drinking problem. That's just even like, dude.
Like an in-camera Luma wipe. I don't fucking know what you're trying to do.
But we brought it into DaVinci Resolve and were able to make usable footage.
There was enough headroom.
Yeah, and the nice thing now with a lot of our legacy content is that we were able to take stuff that was shot, in standard depth, 480, and upres it to a respectable
1080.
high definition.
Yeah.
Well, like no, you don't just drop off like 1080 or like 1280.
Honestly, I don't know.
Bigger than it was, but respectable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I know it's in the realm of high def. It is not ultra high def.
Sure.
Okay. So
You can't get
720
that
by
out of
10.
480 no
Yeah.
matter what the
Yeah.
circumstances are.
But it is it's watchable content still. Whereas a
works
lot
on cell phones, works on computer monitors.
yeah. Yeah. We had a project like that not long ago. We were doing archive footage that was a bunch of it at 480 and 640 and stuff like that, and just had to blow it back up to 1280 for archive reasons.
Yeah, for
Digitalizing.
archival reasons and for, now we're getting into the fucking thick of it. Like the behind the scenes of assuaging, clients' demands.
Yeah.
Sometimes you take a 480, a 720, and it needs to be at a certain form factor. And you do what you can. You use the best tools to your avail, and you pump it out. And this is okay. I know. I don't know who's going to be watching this. I don't know if I'm going to get myself in trouble or anybody else in trouble, but sometimes you bump it up and you just wait. You let it go. You give it to the client. Mm-hmm. And then if they don't notice, safe. Safe.
I mean, and the customer will hardly really ever notice. Like they're not really looking at it for.
No, because you know what? They're normally checking it out on
Yeah.
their cell phone.
Yeah.
They're normally checking it out on a computer screen. Nobody is double checking your work on a fucking 4K, 80-inch fucking.
Yeah, and they're not gonna expect archive footage to
Yeah.
be up to today's standards on a 40-inch TV or whatever.
And it's kind of part and parcel of the kind of stuff that we edit. It's not about the technical amazing stuff that you can do with amazing gear. It's about the dick went in the butt, and
It's a guy using one hand over here and
it looked like the dick went in the butt. Paid. Here's your invoice.
It's a guy with one hand over here, one hand right here, and that's all he fucking cares about.
But I mean, you don't want to make it look like the Japanese stuff with the interlacing and all.
Oh no.
You want to make it as clean and crisp as possible, and
Stick it to a good frame rate,
Yeah.
Stick to the same frame rate you've always used.
Oh no, I'm not for one instance saying that we're not going to do the best that we can for our clients.
Yeah.
I'm saying that there are some things maybe they don't need to know.
right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, don't bog them down. Well, it's choice paralysis. If you give them too many choices, they're gonna be like, well,
Exactly.
let's try the other one.
Don't confuse them with the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Does the end product look good? That's all they want.
I kind of want to ask you a question, Jimmy.
Yes.
Part and parcel about where you're at right now. What's this new project?
The new project.
Yeah, what's this new
Dee's
project?
feature.
Yeah.
She has gone back to her early career as a professional dominatrix, and the working title is Dungeon Stories. I don't know if she's going to keep that or not, because a lot of our titles come out of something somebody says, and you're just in there, it's like, ooh, that's the title. But right now, the title is Dungeon Stories, and it's 7 scenes based on actual live sessions that she had when she worked in a pro dungeon.
Oh, nice. So current dominatrixes or whatever, doing scenes with their pro subs or whatever. Or?
I mean, it's all professional performers.
Yeah.
pretty much all friends of ours.
But trusted.
Yes.
long-term
Yeah, of course,
friends,
yeah.
I mean, and after we talk about this, we can talk about the whole shooting slave thing, which I think is, I mean, I get why people do it, but you get what you pay for, and somebody who's performing for you for free
Yeah.
is not necessarily the best option.
Absolutely. Just like when if your sub wants to do the camera work, if he's not good at cameras, you're gonna probably get a potato.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is this is another thing that we've been talking about like all throughout season 3 is the hiring of the untested, the hiring of the, and it's because
We
sometimes
should always be tested. It keeps us safe.
Oh,
no,
absolutely.
no. When I no, that's not what I mean. When I say untested, I don't mean blood test.
I know.
and industry test. But I mean,
Tried and tested, time tested.
Yes.
Yeah.
picking up folks from the curb. Sometimes everything, like all the stars have to align to like give somebody a chance, But then you find yourself in a position where like you're witnessing some of your best friends and compatriots like just hiring folks essentially quote unquote off the street, and you're like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, there was a director I used to shoot for, and for the sake of argument, let's say his production help budget was $300. It was more than that. He paid a relatively living wage, I'm assuming, but rather than taking that $300 and going out and finding one really good second guy who like knew the camera and knew lighting and knew sound and was really an asset to the production, this guy would like chop it up in 3, go out and hire 3 knuckleheads, and he spent half his time on set just trying to wrangle them. It's like, you need lube, and the guy who's supposed to get the lube is out back smoking weed, and then you're done with the first girl's pretty girl, and you're looking for the second girl to shoot her pretty girls, and guy number 2 is hitting on her in the kitchen and really pissing her off. And they're just, they would set lights up wrong. They would set booms up wrong. They would forget to charge the camera battery. It was just nonstop, just avoidable mistakes. And it's like, why he didn't just spend the money on one good guy instead of 3 bad guys, I will never know.
I guess he thought power in numbers, but it's just going to be more work if they don't know what they're
I think
doing.
part of it was power too. You
Yeah.
wanted guys that you could boss around and yell at.
Oh, well, I guess there's that side of power too.
Yeah.
But still, get a get one good one.
Guys, I hate to say it, but we're
Already
coming
there?
down to the brass tacks.
Jeez.
Oh boy.
We're coming down to the bleeding edge. And here's the way that like we try to wrap up the show. Again,
With a musical number?
in post, you'll hear it.
Will there be dancing? Cue the showgirls.
There will indeed. But before we have the dancing girls come on with their French kicks and their stuff, I gotta ask you one thing. Just to wrap up the show, put a nice bow on it. If there were 3 pieces of advice that you could give folks entering the industry, this is from your perspective,
Okay.
3 pieces of solid advice, what would they be?
Entering the industry in what capacity?
Whether it be production or performer.
Yeah,
Either one,
again,
'cause
this
you
is
got
from your perspective.
You got experience in both sides, so.
Oh, okay. Just because the advice would be different depending on the role.
And
that they're-
of course, keep in mind, we have been interviewing so many people with so many different perspectives. We get all kinds of amazing 3 pieces of advice. So from your perspective, what would you tell somebody based off of your experience that they ought to do coming in?
Number 1, consent.
Absolutely.
Everything. Just from the very beginning, even if, the director, if you're directing, make sure that your performers are having the consent conversation. If you're a performer and your director isn't asking for it, you ask for it. Consent. that honest, open communication with your scene partner, with the people you were shooting, to make sure everybody knows what you want, is comfortable with what you want, and won't have any problems giving you what you want.
I love this right away because it actually circles back to immediately what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. Communication
Yes.
is key. That is the root.
Number 2, respect, which is kind of blends in from the
goes
consent.
along.
But for everybody, you have no idea who the other people you are working with are. Treat them the way you want to be treated.
Your makeup artist, your PA.
On a good day.
Yeah.
But I mean, early on, or like middle of my career, I would be on set for other companies, and they would bring in performers who had no idea who I was, and they would just show total disrespect because, oh yeah, he's just the husband. I'm here, in a cuckolding scene. He's just the husband. I don't care about him. And it's whatever. It's like I want to focus on the guy I'm having sex with, and I want to make sure the director is happy. And you have no idea, especially in this day and age, what the other people on set also do. Because I mean, there were, I'd say, at least 50 performers who lost work from us just because they didn't show everybody respect. They figured this guy isn't important. I'm going to blow him off. And, he's not deserving of my respect. Well, you're not deserving of my employment.
Right.
And the third, I would say put away 10% of everything, every check, every payment you get, just take 10% and tuck it away.
That's really good advice.
Because that's going to get you through the rough spots, and you can live on 90% of what you're making.
That's actually the second time we've had Save Your Money.
Yeah.
But just a second out of all these 9 episodes, but important.
As a general clause, yeah, that makes so much sense. And it comes from experience, it comes from age. And I love that you said that, because there's so many people that are listening to this podcast just because of the nature of the show that are early 20, mid 20-year-olds that have no idea, like they're just, reeds in the wind, that want some sort of pragmatic actual advice. That is an amazing bit of
and
advice.
they're going to be the first ones whining the next time we have a moratorium. And they don't work for 3 weeks. Right. And it's like, what am I going to do? And it's like, well, you're going to dip into that 10% you've been putting away, and that's going to buy your groceries and maybe a couple of pay-per-view movies, and
just a little bit of savings goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. It's good to have for a rainy day, because it doesn't, especially for performer, like it doesn't continue at the same pace as it does when you first start. It changes, and then it also migrates into being more like performer production stuff. You have to spin more plates. It gets harder. And, while you're making that money, if you're making it in the studio way and you're getting a big chunk of money to perform, save some of that money.
yeah.
And with all that being said, our good friend is telling us consent, respect, and hovel a little bit away.
Yeah.
Dash them in a
These
shoebox.
are amazing pieces of advice. And Jimmy, thank you so much for being